Hello and welcome back to the Living with Loss podcast. Today, I'm joined by another wonderful guest, Liam Butcher. Thank you for being here, mate.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
So obviously, we were discussing a bit before, it's obviously really nice to, sit down and have a good chat and just sort of open up. I think chats like this are important, sort of thing. Just have that sense of just really understand someone and really, get to know them and sort of know what they've been through. I think these chats, instead for just opening up, are really important sort of thing. Like, do you know what I mean?
Definitely, it doesn't happen enough. I think, especially people our age, and men as well. Just to add another layer to that. So no, it's great to get it out there, have some chats.
Yeah,
it needs to be done.
Well, thank you again, mate. So who is it we'll be talking about today? And just if you mind, share a bit of your story and sort of just we'll go from there.
So my best mate Matt died just over about 3.5 years ago.
Okay.
3.5 years ago of cancer. He was ill for about 6 years. He was diagnosed when he was 19.
Okay.
Beat it twice, came back a third time, and all the treatments he had, all the treatments under the sun, and whatever he could have had done, he had it. Ultimately, it wasn't enough. He died when he was 25. Obviously, when you're that age, you don't expect these things to happen to you.
No.
You just never in a million years do you think your best mate, at the age of 25, will die. Had absolutely no idea how to deal with it at the time.
No.
And even in the build up to it never felt like he would die. He never thought. I knew how ill he was. I knew what could happen, but it never actually not occurred to me, but sunk in that I could actually lose my best mate here, and he might die of cancer in his mid-20s. So despite the fact that we knew it was going to happen, a few months before it didn't help.
Yeah.
It didn't actually prepare us.
No.
And I'm saying us, I'm speaking of other people as well, but
it
didn't prepare us for
the eventuality.
A new reality without, my best mate in my life for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So it was a shock. I didn't deal with it particularly well. I don't blame myself anymore for that. I don't think you can really.
You can't.
You can't prepare for these things. There's no textbook. There's no scripts you have to follow to deal with grief.
No.
I didn't really seek help either.
No.
I'm certainly not the only one in my position that hasn't done that, especially as a man as well. I had no idea what to do, where to turn. Tried to carry on as normal. I was self-employed at the time. I couldn't take time off work, even if I wanted to, so I didn't. I tried to carry on, plough through it. Didn't work for me. It took a little while to really realise what was going on. It's only really about a year later that I realised how much was still sort of pent up inside me. All this grief that I hadn't allowed myself to process and get out was still there.
Yeah.
And it was through doing a podcast actually, where I actually had a very open, honest conversation with somebody, said things that I hadn't said for a long time. It all came out. And then for the month, I think I'd say another 3 months after that followed, I actually felt the worst I'd felt in that whole year.
Okay.
Off the back of having that conversation,
of course,
letting the words come out,
and
then feeling all those things you would feel having done that.
Yeah.
So that was a big realization for me that it can't go on not talking. You can't go on holding it in, pretending it's not happening. It's not sustainable. It's not healthy. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
And that led me to joining Let's Talk About Loss, who are a fantastic charity, absolutely incredible, and growing so fast as well.
Yeah.
Where we help young people between the age of 18 and 35 deal with grief.
Yeah.
Bring them together, create community, make new friends, have honest conversations that we don't have with other people outside that bubble. Joined as a host. And it's one of the best things I've ever done. Some of the people I've met and conversations I've had have really changed my life.
Yeah.
And I haven't looked back. I'm so glad I actually listened to myself and reached out and did what I needed to do.
Yeah, of course.
I wasn't having those conversations with my friendship group, my family. It just wasn't happening. I wasn't getting the support that I needed. I don't blame anybody. I wasn't looking for it. So I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to look for it. So this charity was the perfect platform for me, if you like, to put my energy into and get back what I needed.
I completely understand that. I think, one of the things you have brought up quite a lot is that sense of support. And when you lose someone and you experience, you go through, whether it is a friend, a mother, a brother, a sister, you don't know who to talk to. And there aren't especially at a young age, there aren't too many similar people in your situation. And the idea, so obviously that's what I think is such a unique and strong idea behind the Let's Talk About Loss charity, is the fact it brings young people together to really face these inner demons in a way, that a lot of repressed emotions. Like, one of the things that I've really kind of realized from these conversations is enabled me to like face a lot of my like hidden traumas quite early on, because I was kind of confronting them, like having these conversations. Like you said, you bring up all these things like, oh, that's actually what I've been thinking, or like you not necessarily been thinking, but like there's something quite powerful about verbalizing it, and like you kind of it really gives you yourself like a sense of understanding of what you're going through. So for you to after the last conversation or podcast you had, like that's completely natural. Like, and the fact is, grief, it just comes in such a unique, and like it transforms your life. And I think that's really important, the idea how losing someone, it changes your past, your present, and your future. Your whole path is different. I do want to obviously talk a little bit about Matt. And when Matt first was diagnosed at 19, you said, how was his response? Like, did he have such a hatred attitude towards the world, or?
No. See, this is the thing. He's my hero. He took it all in his stride.
Yeah,
he just
amazing.
Never ever showed that he was struggling. Like, you could see it, and you could tell the things he had to go through, how ill he got at times. But he would never. He'd sometimes, if you'd have a conversation with me saying, I'm not feeling too great today, I'm struggling, but he would never ever blame the world, blame anybody. Oh, woe is me. Why is this happening to me?
Yeah.
You wouldn't have blamed him for it.
Yeah.
But it never happened. He was never like that. Even when he was first diagnosed, I remember it like yesterday on Boxing Day.
Yeah.
And he went
down.
What
a Christmas present.
I know.
Fucking hell, Santa.
Incredible, yeah. You can't make it up. It's just, he went downhill so quickly.
Okay.
He
what kind of cancer was it?
It was leukemia.
Okay.
So very, very complicated, obviously. He got an infection. His immune system was almost non-existent.
Okay.
Because of his treatment as well. That just knocked him out.
Yeah.
Totally. So he got an infection very, very soon after he got diagnosed. Was in hospital. Almost died within a few weeks of getting diagnosed of it.
Yeah.
And you think it's gone from what you thought was your perfectly normal, healthy 19-year-old mate to being on his deathbed.
And that itself must transform, like you must, when like you experience something like that, you kind of see life in a complete, like how fragile and how unexpected kind of life is.
Yeah. But at the time it didn't sink in. I never thought that realization never actually hit me, because it didn't feel real.
Yeah.
This can't actually be happening. There's no way in this space of time he's gone from here to here and he's about to die. He got through that stage, obviously.
Yeah.
And he was with the mindset, oh no, it's fine, I'll be all right, don't worry about me. I don't want any of this attention, any of this, oh sorry, no, how are you? Doesn't want any of that. He just wants to just get on with it and recover and get back to his old self again. Which he did do that. He did. I think a lot of it was down to his attitude and his mindset.
Yeah.
And he would never let anything get him down. Very often his what's the word I'm looking for? Priority was other people in his life, his friends and his family, not worrying too much.
Okay.
And not getting too down because of his situations. He would actually arrange social events for us friends. We thought, he's going to be there as well. He's arranging it. He knew full well he wasn't going to be there. Yeah. Just that we could get out. And talk to each other. And it was just like,
that's incredible.
He texted me saying, "I'm sorry, I'm not up to it today."
Yeah.
And then you sort of realise there's a pattern emerging next. He kept doing it.
Yeah.
Because he knew that we had to get together. And,
okay.
Got nights out.
That's really intelligent. Like, that's incredible. Really amazing.
But that was his presence of mind and his mindset. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the time he struggled a lot more than we knew.
Realised.
He let on to. And we only really realised it towards the end when, he was so ill towards the end. And that's when you knew that he wasn't going to get better. He wasn't going to.
Yeah.
And he knew that. When he accepted that, that's when you knew. Because he'd never previously accepted that.
No.
So when he said, I've got a few weeks left now, you knew that this was it now.
And did he have that conversation with you?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So that was. But again, even then, you didn't expect it to actually be the end because we'd thought this before and it'd never been the end. So when that day actually did come around, when he actually died, we weren't ready for it, even though we knew it was happening.
Yeah,
we didn't really know. We didn't.
Yeah, of course.
Didn't accept it.
I think, but do you know what? That's what's so. Oh, it's not. I don't know if the word's unique. And by the way, I think the chair I've given you is like it's a chair that squeaks a lot. I should have. Yeah, I think I should have probably binned it, but not binned it. But anyway, the thing, like with mum, you don't, because you see them go through so much in their life, and every time they, they succeed, every time they accomplish, they have chemo and they come out fighting. To hear that, someone is going to to pass, and the idea that it's definite, you don't really believe it, because you've seen it before, like, yeah, but she's been to hospital, and like, so to really hear that there's a final date, you can't quite comprehend it, because it's like, well, I don't,
it's too much to take in, isn't it? You can't just process it all in one go. It just doesn't work like that.
No, not at all.
No, I think there's a lot of naivety. For myself, I thought grief starts off at its worst, gets better over time, and it goes like downwards. But
unfortunately, it's like
it doesn't work. It took a long time to realise that. It took a year for me to realise it. Grief isn't linear. It comes and goes when you least expect it, and it will never go away.
No,
it sometimes rears its head.
No.
Other times it's less intense. You can carry on with your life, and you can get distractions. It's a mad one, isn't it? That's why
it is a complete mad one. Like you said, like, there is no structure. You don't wake up saying, okay, today I'm not going to think about mum, or I'm not going to think about, Matt, and just it's going to be a completely normal day. I'm going to go to work and just attack the day as if it was a normal day. And then all of a sudden, you're passing. I mean, it would be different, but all of a sudden I'm passing, someone my age with their mum on the street, and I'm like, right, that's a bit shit. I'm not gonna, and it's not, it's the idea that it's not something you can predict. That grief has no structure. Like you said, it's not linear.
No.
As much as we want it to be, it's not.
That's not. So how was it for you then? You have these conversations a lot.
Yeah.
Do you find after you have a podcast, do you then find you start to feel a few bits after speaking, or is it not?
Well, it's an interesting question, actually, because I think every time I've been doing these for for about near enough a year now, and within that time I journey and my grief has changed, and a lot of it has been down to this, of course. A lot of my understanding, because I think it's what we touched on a little bit before, is when you do confront it. And I know not everyone can do that, but for me, it's important to really confront, the inner workings of my mind, and because it's like a jigsaw, it's a confusing jigsaw. But does it bring up a lot of stuff? Yeah, it does. But I'm okay with that, because it then gives me, the tools that I sort of can handle it. It's a weird way of looking at it, but I think when you do have these conversations, and I think one thing that is important to mention is, I've had a lot of conversations with people, do you want to talk about your mum, and it isn't something I want to talk about all the time, I think people want to, like, non-grievers I'm kind of talking about, they want, because loss is so confusing for those non-grievers. They're like, well, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. I could fucking and that, I think that's what's hard about it.
This is the thing. It's so, I don't like ever to put pressure on people who just don't understand what it's all about.
No.
Obviously, we want that support and we need it.
Yeah.
But the common theme is, especially people I talk to in the charity group, is that whenever I try to talk to somebody who doesn't understand it, it's just a disaster. It just doesn't work. So for that reason, I can't talk to people. And you think, there's two parts to that. They can't possibly know what it's like.
Yeah.
So you kind of understand it from them. You think, well, they can't empathise. They don't know what to say. That's not their fault. But at the same time, we as a community, collective, if you like, need to normalise having those conversations.
Yeah, 100%.
Otherwise, it will never change, especially when we're this age.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the fact that we are at such a young age losing, a huge figure in your life at such a pivotal, age in your life, where you are going to go through such transitions. Like, no one says to you, like, you don't learn in school about grief, like, because, you know, I remember being in school and they have drugs awareness, or they'd have all these different mental health talks, because you know, that almost that's something people will face in their life. But I don't ever remember having a conversation about, you know, grief and knowing the nuances of grief, because they don't expect a child or, you know, like a young adult to lose. But it is more common than people think. But at the same time, I think that's, you know, obviously let's talk about loss and the idea behind bringing people together. Like, these conversations are important, you know, they normalize an unspoken topic, but also they show that we are open. Like, if someone asks me about my mum, I'm not gonna, you know, get upset. I'm not gonna cry. If I don't want to talk about mum, I will say, like, you know, we're having a good day watching the football. Like, now's not the time to ask what my mum's favourite dish was.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean, sort of thing?
Yeah, and that's it. And I think it almost gets polarised. It's people who are non-grief people, if we're going to put them in that category.
Yeah, I don't think there's a term. Do you know what I mean?
They either think they do want to talk about it, or they don't.
Yeah.
What's one or the other? And it's either always one, or it's always the other.
Yeah.
There needs to be that level of empathy and understand that sometimes, actually, we might not want to talk about it right now, but we do later.
Yeah.
Or we do want to talk about it, we don't know what to say. So give us a bit more time, and then we'll come out of it.
On, yeah.
And it's you know, and we're always somewhere in the middle. It's, you know, me personally, I'm not always on the side where I don't want to talk about him. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
It's always, I do want to talk about him, but I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
But when I'm ready, I'll talk.
When you're ready, you'll talk about it. What was Matt's, you know, his viewpoint? Did he discuss his cancer a lot, or was he kind of a bit more reserved and sort of just had, like, what was his kind of attitude towards it?
Again, he never liked to worry people or talk too much about himself, so he wouldn't go into too much detail.
Yeah.
Obviously, being that close to him, I knew everything that was going on and his treatments. I'd go to hospital sometimes when he's having his chemo and hang out with him, come home with him, that sort of thing. So I could see what was going on.
Yeah.
But with my sort of wider friendship group, he was never openly talking about, or rarely openly talking about his treatment or how ill he is or what doctors think or that kind of thing. What he would do is say, I can't do this right now because my blood cell count is too low. Okay. So it's too risky for me to do this.
Yeah.
He's always pushed the boundaries as well. So he's always tried his best to get away with whatever he could.
Yeah.
But no, he wasn't naturally open and talking about his cancer and his illness, because he was of the mindset that he would go over it and it wouldn't last forever.
Yeah.
And he didn't want other people to worry about him and give him that attention. But you knew it was important to him. I'd always try to get him talking and say, how are you? Don't say, I'm fine. Like, you're not. Like, how are you doing? What's going on? Like, where are you at? And he would talk to me, but it was never easy to get him into that place. Yeah.
I think, and also that's like a combination of things. I think one of that might be the male attitude towards open conversations. Yeah. And the idea that it is very difficult to, even some of my closest mates, I can only say like a handful of people who I have opened up to prior to losing mum. And I think it's like, as men, we just don't know where to start. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I could just be sitting down with someone and they're like, how are you feeling? And I'm like, yeah, I'm all right, mate. Just like lad banter.
It's expected, isn't it? Yeah.
Because like, as soon as you open up, it's like, right. It's like, why have you said that? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, showing as a man to show vulnerability is kind of not unheard of, but it's definitely more awareness towards it now.
Yeah, but there's a stigma.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the thing. There's no answer to it, I don't believe.
No.
It goes back generations. Men have been brought up for years and years and years to not. They're the manly one. They're the provider. Yeah. They're the strong one. They look after the family. Yeah. They don't talk about grief or emotions. No. They don't get sad. They don't get upset. They're the ones that hold it all together. And men have been brought up to be that way for years and years.
Yeah.
It's slowly going not the other way per se, but there's those conversations are being had. In a few generations' time, it will become normal. I don't think it's an overnight fix.
No, it
all
can't
we
be.
can do is normalize it as best we can in our own circles and give men the opportunity to speak.
Yeah.
And let them know that it's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, personal experience, I don't have another guy to open up to like I did for Matt. I just don't have that man in my life. I don't have it.
Yeah.
I don't talk to my dad about personal stuff.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do, but we don't go very deep. So sometimes, well, not sometimes, what I do is look outside of my circle now.
Yeah.
As a group that I'm a part of. Have you heard of the New Normal charity, TNN?
I haven't. TNN?
TNN.
I think I've seen that advertised somewhere.
So we've got a group called Boys Talk, which
Okay.
I host with one or two others, and we literally sit on Google Hangouts and we talk about men's mental health.
Yeah.
And it's so incredibly powerful.
I can imagine.
Having a group of men just being completely vulnerable, trusting everybody else in that group, and talking about things that they don't talk about elsewhere. These conversations are not being had with their friends and family. Like this is as men, we're getting together, we're breaking the stigma. Breaking the stigma, I don't like using that word, but this is it. You don't break the stigma. People have said to me before, how did you break the stigma? When I haven't broken it.
You haven't done anything. I'm just fucking opened your mouth and a little
exactly. And because you're doing it once doesn't necessarily make it easier to do it again.
No.
It just makes it's a little bit easier.
You're like, okay, I've done this
but it's
before.
not done now. It's not like, oh, that's it. I'm cool now. I can just talk about this.
Yeah, give me a microphone. It's just like,
it's never like that. And but it does get easier over time because you normalise it within yourself and you get good reactions, people around you. You know that it's okay and you feel safe.
Yeah.
But it goes without saying it's a huge problem still with men and mental health and talking.
I think something you mentioned, the fact that there's an idea talking with people who don't know you, I don't know, not necessarily a stranger, but like talking with I guess a stranger in a way, it's easier to have those conversations than someone who on like a deep, meaningful level. But the weird thing is, right, so how can you develop deep, meaningful connections with your mates if you haven't been able to really just be as open as possible? And it's mental.
It's a very rare thing. I think having that dynamic with somebody else is it's rare in itself. Between two men, it's even rarer. Society doesn't it does allow you for it. I won't say it doesn't allow for it. Of course it does, but it doesn't
cater for that.
Yeah, you're not expected to have all these emotional connections with other men as friends. It's not. It's not status quo, is it? It's not. Like you said, you see your mates still talk about football, a bit of banter. That's always been that way for you.
That's a culture, yeah.
So suddenly going from that for however many years to a whole different dynamic must be incredibly difficult, maybe in their minds more so than yours, to actually adapt to that.
But I also think there might be 5 of you in a circle. Well, I don't know, a circle, but within that friendship group, there are people who within that inner group who do want to be open and have those conversations, but they don't know how to start.
No, that's it.
And it's like, 2 of you could be anticipating and wanting that conversation, but because no one brings it up, you're still having the typical. And there's nothing wrong with lads banter. Don't get me wrong. It's fun, to have a good laugh with your mates is great, and it's but sometimes it's okay to be open and it's okay to really be vulnerable. And I think it's something I do try and encourage. Hopefully from these conversations, people have kind of seen that being open isn't a weakness. It's nothing.
That's exactly it. I think society sees it, as you said, emotion, sadness is weakness.
Yeah.
Everything else is strength.
Yeah.
But it's the other way around. If you're withholding emotions and stress and you'll just keep it to yourself, that's not weak.
Healthy.
That's not strength.
Yeah.
That's weakness because you're not confronting it.
Yeah.
And you're not doing the brave thing, doing what you need to do to make yourself feel better.
Yeah.
You're hiding away from it. Strength is the opposite. It's actually standing up and having that conversation and saying, hey,
completely,
I'm not feeling too great today. Can we talk about it? That's strength, not weakness.
No.
But we know that because we've been doing it. Yeah, so we know that strength because we've been doing it and we know what it's all about.
Yeah.
There's still that misconception in society of what is strong and what is weak, and that men opening up, that's a sign of weakness.
And it's for me anyway, it started at such a young age, growing, and we're talking secondary school here. I remember being in secondary school, and I obviously mum was incredibly ill at the time, and there was all these onset of emotions, and I was mental health even at 13, 14 was quite a significant aspect of my life. But I used to beat myself up for feeling shit. I used to be like, I remember coming home from school and be like, Mom, like, why am I the only person who feels like this? Why am I, everyone else seems so happy and enjoying life, and I hate my life. And as a 14-year-old to say that, it's incredibly detrimental, for young guys, growing up into to have that idea that having, you're never going to succeed. And I think that was the thing for me. I always felt that I was never going to succeed if I had, these emotions. Like, what the fuck? Like, what? I need to be stone cold, Steve Austin? No, but you need to be like this stone cold killer if you want to succeed in anything.
If all your mates around you are not showing the same emotion, you think you're the odd one out, and you think there's something wrong with you. Yeah. And that's obviously not the case.
No.
But when you're that age, you don't know that, do you?
Not at all.
You start wondering what's going on. Why do I feel like this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what you said about self-criticism as well.
Yeah.
That's a massive part of it. And for me particularly, I actually had this conversation the other day in our men's talk group.
Okay.
And I said, throughout my whole life, I've just been so self-critical. And I think that's a male thing. Not, obviously women are also self-critical.
Yeah.
But as a man, I'm critical of myself for reasons that I shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Let's use an example. The last couple of weeks, major lockdown fatigue.
Okay.
Work.
Yeah.
Stressful. All got too much. I had a really bad sort of weekend, bad couple of days. I was feeling like shit. And I did what I don't normally do. And I reached out to people just for some conversation, just for some chats. And I said, I'm not feeling too great today. Here's why. Just talk to me. Just give me something. Just talk to me. Give me an outlet. I haven't normally done that.
Okay.
For once, I practiced what I preached.
Yeah.
But instead of on the Monday when I felt better, saying, "Oh, well done, you did the right thing," pat on the back, I was beating myself up, saying, "Why did you do that? Why did you make yourself vulnerable? Why did you tell people you're not feeling very well? What a dickhead! You've embarrassed yourself now."
Yeah.
And I actually thought those thoughts about myself.
Yeah.
And I just stopped myself. Went, "What are you talking about?
Yeah.
You literally host a group about opening up and talking and being vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yet you're beating yourself up for doing that exact same thing." And that was a big
realization,
wake up moment for me. It's like this. You know what? This can't continue.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to change my mindset towards this now.
Yeah. It's very, very interesting. And I think when something I've thought about recently, and growing up, I was incredibly self-critical, and in whatever it was, whether I was playing football, and I used to play at quite a high level, and I was quite good, but I'd always beat myself up if I made small mistakes. So that kind of attitude transcended into like kind of everything I did.
Right, okay. Yep.
So even if like, let's say I was having a conversation, and then I'm thinking of like, why the fuck did I say that in my head? Like, we're in a conversation, something that maybe I would have said hi really weirdly, like, oh hi, like, and then I'm thinking, why did I say that? They probably think I'm such a weirdo. Bear in mind, they haven't even realised it.
Because you're used to having pressure on yourself.
Yeah.
Like self-pressure sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think and then, more recently, the more you have conversations, the more you kind of look into yourself. These thoughts don't go away. Don't get me wrong. You're not going to walk through life without, this, because that's part of being a human. Like we have all, so many emotions. We have all these thoughts. Like you can't get rid of them, but it's about how to deal with them when they come.
Yep.
And I think that's something that I am realizing. Like I am going to have these thoughts where I'm like self-critical and self-loathing. But when you have them, it's about anticipating that they're not indefinite. They're just a thought that you can, eradicate, and you can, move on, sort of thing.
Yeah, it's accepting good with bad.
Yeah.
You can't, like you said, you can't get rid of bad thoughts, negative energy forever. That's not real. That's not real life. All you can do is, when it comes to you, notice it, realize what it is, accept it for what it is, and then process it.
Yeah.
But it's not easy. It's not, especially when it's a lot at once, and you're in a place of non-mindfulness where you're stressed and there's all sorts coming on. It's not easy. It will never be easy.
No.
So what do you do then when you're particularly having really bad days and your grief is,
Yeah.
Do you open up? Do you keep it to yourself?
Well,
who do you talk to?
So I think there's a few things that I kind of do. I do a lot of writing. So I'm a spoken word artist. I was on the BBC a few times, little flex, yeah. So I do a lot of writing. Writing like conversation kind of have the same impact in terms of just. I mean, if you looked at some of the shit I write, you'd be like, "That's just a load of shit." But that's what goes on up here.
It's getting out of your head onto paper, isn't it, or somewhere else other than your head?
Yeah. So I do some writing. I think it's only been 16, 17 months, so it hasn't been a long time. But I mean, sport helps. I think you said you were quite into your gym. Is that something you found beneficial for you?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Habits and routine and
getting
things done. Yeah, just an outlet.
Yeah.
For energy. I think that's why at the moment it's such a struggle.
Oh, completely.
Because it just isn't that outlet. I mean, you can always go out, go for a walk, go for a run. There's no excuse for not doing it. But me being the way I am, I'm goal orientated.
Yeah.
What's my goal? Well, when it's gym, I've got my gym goals.
Yeah.
So I go to gym for that reason, and by extension, that helps with my stress and my mental health and everything else. So when we're in lockdown and we're
locked down doing
exactly. So that's the struggle. I think is self-motivation as well.
Did you notice yourself grieving more during lockdown, like this period of your life, than prior, or
not necessarily? Do you know what? The first lockdown last year in March, because it all slowed down and stopped, that actually helped because I was at home, living at home on my own at the time.
Yeah.
Working from home, we were slowing down what we were doing, so we weren't set up to work from home straight away.
Okay.
So we're sort of half doing it, half not. I was able just to stop.
Yeah.
I wasn't busy. I wasn't stressed at work. I was able just to be in my own space.
Yeah.
And I felt so calm. Yeah. Obviously, you're worrying about coronavirus, don't know what the future holds, but just having that space to myself where I could just slow down actually allowed me to process a lot of stuff that was going on in my head that I didn't know was there. So I wouldn't say that's made my grief worse, but it did allow me at the time to process a few bits, work out where I am, what I might need to do to get myself into a better place.
Yeah.
Having said that, it's not always been like that.
No.
I think when you're going full throttle like we have been now with work, still in lockdown, all these things going on, it's very stressful.
Yeah.
And when you're trying to process your grief at the same time, it's not easy because you don't have a headspace to actually do what you need to do. So no, there's two sides to it. But having said that, having some space in lockdown has been actually a bit of a blessing. It's not been all bad.
No, it's weird you say. Well, I wouldn't say weird actually. I think that's the wrong word. I felt, and I have had conversations where people. Well, I don't know about everyone, but for me, and I think because lockdown came a couple of months after, maybe 6-7 months after I'd lost mum. No, maybe a bit less, but because it came at a point where prior to lockdown, I would have just fucked off to uni, been at uni and just got drunk and done that shit and just lived that lifestyle. But coming home had meant that I had to confront a lot of things. I was in the house with my family. We were all locked up together and sort of had to have more open conversations. We spoke about mum more. And those months were hard. They were really hard. Not just because of an outgoing pandemic, but we had to, I think when you lose someone, especially a parent, it's very easy to just all go your separate ways. And, I went off to uni. Ben, my brother, went, I think he was at school. Yeah, he went, at school at the time. My sister was at school. Like, we all went our separate ways. But coming home, we had to confront them.
Yeah. Face up to it.
Yeah. And I think, so in a way, it's weird, but I was in a way self-isolating prior to it because of losing, I was in my room quite a lot, depressed and very in a grief-stricken way prior to lockdown. So from a selfish standpoint, I was like, right, now everyone's in my position. Like, I'm not the only one who's like at home. So I guess from that perspective, I was like, you know what, this isn't terrible.
That's it. When being young and grieving, we've felt like outsiders to the rest of the world. But over the last year, the whole world has been grieving.
Yeah.
Whether it's people have died, if they know, loved ones, or they're grieving their lives that have been taken away from them. They're grieving something. So there's this blanket of grief over the whole world, which we're also in.
Yeah.
So now we're not outsiders. We're not the ones who are hiding away and maybe being a recluse for a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
It's the whole world in one way or another is feeling something that we can all empathise with, if you like.
Yeah.
And I have found that's helped a bit.
Yeah.
Because I no longer feel like the odd one out if I speak up and say something, put something on my Instagram.
Yeah.
Because everybody's feeling grief in some way. And we're all, in our own way, reaching out for help and support.
Yeah.
And I think that's helped society come to terms with the fact that grief and sadness has to be spoken about.
Yeah.
Which we've all been doing over the past 12 months, expressing it in our own ways, some more extreme ways than others. But it goes to show that these things can't be held in, and we're not weak for having a moment where we actually do talk and do reach out. So obviously I'm not at all saying that coronavirus has been a blessing. It's absolutely not. But there's things that we can take from how we've responded to it that we can move forward with.
100%. I think I don't like this question, and I've definitely asked it in the past, and I think I've always asked, like, what have you not always, but like, what have you learned from losing, Matt? And it was a weird question to ask, because why do you have to learn something? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a more, I think, and also when you do these, you kind of think a bit more like, why do I need to learn anything? Like, but is there anything you kind of given yourself?
Yeah. I think the main thing is emotional maturity,
which
has just been forced upon me and us, because we now have to go from being young, carefree 20-somethings trying to make their way in the world to people with this massive cloud that will never go away. It's just part of our life now. So we've got to adjust to it. And it's changing us. When you go through emotional trauma, it changes you. You know? And it makes you grow up ahead of your time. And I certainly learned that life isn't linear. It's not all good. There's a lot of bad things in the world, and that's part of it. And it's become easier to process them and understand them and accept them for what they are. So for me, that's what I've learned. But the main takeaway from it so far has been definitely emotional maturity and having to grow up very, very quickly and find ways to deal with it and allow myself to live a happy life while grieving. Just not, it's not an answer. It's not given to you. It's not a script you can read, and this is how you do it. You've got to find your own way sometimes. So that for me has been the main takeaway from it. Yeah,
I mean, one of the things. So when you first lost, your mate, how, like, because obviously I feel like losing a friend, there is an aspect to it that is so unique in the fact that, like, your family probably weren't grieving as much as you, because he was almost like a brother in a way. You're a best mate, whereas. So, how did you find that? Like, how were people in your circle? Like, obviously, all your friends were grieving, but like, your family, did they like know how to handle you, or like sort of thing?
No, not really. It was pretty much unspoken. I was living with my mum at the time. She was obviously very aware of what was going on. And we would sometimes talk about it. Not, I wouldn't open up too much, because at the time I just wasn't that way inclined, but a little bit here and there. I then sort of moved out of the family home, and not to say at all that it stopped. It didn't stop. My family would check in with me sometimes and ask about it, but I was not having the conversations I needed to have, and I wasn't.
That's an age thing.
Yeah, I wasn't expressing how I was actually feeling. I was no longer a 25, 26-year-old man. Making my way in the world. I had this enormous cloud dropped on me, and I wasn't expressing that. So it's twofold. I don't blame anybody. I don't blame my family at all. for not giving me the support that I needed. They probably didn't know that I needed it because I wasn't expressing it.
No.
And that's what led me to then reach out to the charities and other people who were going through something similar. So it was very difficult. I found it very difficult to express what I needed to express.
Yeah.
So I didn't do it. And that, of course, that affected my relationships with my family because it wasn't authentic anymore. I wasn't being who I really was. I was trying to be somebody who I wasn't, who I was a year or two ago.
Yeah. Something I do want to ask. Something about, so what makes losing a friend hard? Like, it sounds like a stupid question, but what aspects? Because a lot of people I have interviewed have lost family, or brother, a mum, but I think this might be the first time I've interviewed someone who's lost a friend.
Yeah.
So what makes that so difficult?
Yeah, it's a really hard question to answer. I've never actually been asked that before. It's a bit of an insecurity of mine, I have to say. Like you saying, most of the time it's family, and it's with me it's not. And even in my circles, my charity groups, it's family. I'm like the one guy who's lost his mate. I'm insecure about that, and I think, should I be here? Am I? Is it the same?
Of course.
I have to remind myself that your grief is valid.
It's not. Do you know what I mean? Like there isn't a fucking Olympics. Like,
no, of course not.
I've had it for 16 years. I'm the champion. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. But look, like you said, he was family to me, not in blood, but he was family. He'd been my best mate for nearly going on 15 years.
Yeah.
Been through it all together. And still don't have that connection with another guy as I did with Matt. Like I just don't have that level of friendship with somebody. I mean, we were brothers. We were joined at the hip. We do, everything together. We support the same football team. We go to games. We play golf. Go to the gym.
Yeah,
that's our thing. We go on nights out, just the two of us. Because if our mates didn't fancy it, like that's what we were. We were family. We grew up together.
Yeah,
we went through it all together. We were there for each other. So he was just an enormous part of my life. He was, my sidekick. He was there all the time.
Yeah.
So not having that now still doesn't feel right. So it's a gap that I'll never have filled in my life. Like even now, we're talking about football. If Chelsea score, I still pick my phone up.
Yeah.
I still do it and go to text him. I don't do it consciously. I do it because it's just a reaction. Because that's what we've done. We were doing for 15 years. So.
It's weird though. It's like that. I don't know if it's an old saying, but you don't choose your family, but you choose your friends. Some people don't have, aren't lucky because they don't have a good family. But the fact, Matt and you, 15 years grew up together and had this bonds that almost you can't get with family. So it's not a shame that but I understand why you probably do get insecure, because people, they're saying, well, they lost a parent, but that means nothing. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can grieve a bloody someone you see on TV, like, someone who had that connection to you in your life. And I think that's what grief is. Like, you don't know, like, how it's going to happen. You don't know what it's going to do, but you grieve for like all different kinds of reasons, and that's ultimately like it's just an ongoing kind of circle sort of thing.
Well, that's it. I mean, everyone's experience of grief is different. Like wildly different. People talk about the 5 stages of grief. Probably a load of bollocks. But you can take things from that. You can relate to some of the things they say. So, oh, actually, I have felt this, I have felt this, I have felt this, but not in that order. And it's not gone from like, okay, I've completed that stage now, on to the next one. And then you get to level 5 and you're done. That's a misconception. But grief. Everyone's grief experience is different. There are similarities. You can always relate to what people are saying. And it's just important to have a space where we can express that. I think, especially with people who have gone through something similar. Having somebody else who can actually listen and understand and relate and not judge you for it as well and make assumptions is priceless. And it's been a life-changing thing for me. Having those conversations with people and meeting those groups, because
because it's something you would never have. No one chooses to go down that route. Like you wouldn't see people who haven't lost someone going to that meeting, because it wouldn't make sense. Like, and it's almost like people don't really want to have conversations about death because it is such a hard conversation to have. You know, people don't really want to think about it. But once you experience it, that is all you really think about. Like that, as boring as it may sound, like, you know, I will talk about mum and I will talk about what I'm going, you know, what I'm experiencing. Like, people are probably sick of it. I don't care, because that's just where, like, that's my life. Like, this is where I'm at now. Like, I can't change that. I can't change losing mum, and this is what it has done, and it's why I am who I am and why I've done this. Because, and you know, something I do. Obviously, we've been speaking about men, and even in the Let's Talk About Loss group. Do you still think are men in, you know, still being open? Like, do you think there are, like, what I'm trying to say is the community that I found on Instagram since doing this, you know, the grief and loss community is quite heavily women orientated. And so do you think, you know, the idea of not talking about, you know, depression and anxiety also, as a man, also transcends into grief as well?
Absolutely. Massively. We do have men that come to our meetups, but it's the exception as opposed to the norm.
Yeah.
So it's commonplace. For example, we might have 15 people in a meetup.
Yeah.
You might get 2 or 3, including me, men.
Okay.
Normally you wouldn't. So I'd say about 50% of the time there's been another guy.
Yeah.
Once or twice there's been a couple of us.
Yeah.
Often there's none. It's just myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, and again, that's like we've said, that's where we are. That's what we're working towards, is trying to change that. And all we can do is let people know that space is there and that it exists.
Yeah.
And that if they want it, when they're ready for it, it's here.
Yeah.
It's impossible to just click a finger and change people's mindsets and make what has been in the past considered a massive taboo and stigma, which is men talking, to go from that to normalising it, as it might be, like you said, with the female community, because there's so many more women there than there are men. We can't go from there to there overnight. But all we can do is just create the space, make it available for people when they're ready for it, and let people know that it's there. I think that's the biggest thing for me. I used to worry about that the first few meetups. I used to think, oh God, there's no men coming along. Is it my fault? Am I not telling enough people? Am I not getting it? Is it charity's fault? No, of course not. It's just the world we live in. Yeah. And we can't put pressure on ourselves to do the impossible. All we can do is just create an environment, create a space, a safe space, a judgment-free space. For whenever people are ready for it.
I think also because men, in a way, I feel like, actually, I don't really know what was going on there, but I think it's I actually don't know what was going on. I was about to say something completely random, but yeah, like, being in that group, I think sometimes guys have other kinds of outlets, like going to the gym, and not to say that women don't as well, because, you know, they could do, but I think because it's such a norm for us guys to, you know, not talk about it, that almost when you do lose someone, it might be very hard to then be pushed in that direction, and you kind of continue the patterns that sort of started in childhood. So I completely understand it. It must be like, how was that for you? You know, going to these meetups and being, you know, one of the only guys. How do you sort of?
It used to bother me a little bit.
Yeah.
I used to be very conscious of the fact that I was the only guy there. But, you know, having said that, I'm not like a lot of guys. I talk openly.
Yeah.
And I've been able to do that just by having done it a few times. It becomes a lot easier for me. And now that I've been in, you know, nearly 2 years worth of meetups where it's almost exclusively female. Yeah. That's normal for me now, so it's not a problem. It did used to bother me a bit, because I always used to worry about being judged. I used to think, oh, what are women going to think of me for being a guy who's putting himself out there and talking about grief and mental health? Like, men don't do that. But this was my mindset of 2 years ago. Yeah, but this is it. But this was the mindset of 2 years ago. It has changed now. I'm much more accepting of the situation.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I like talking to men about it as well, because there's some things that only men can relate to.
Yeah.
And certain thought processes that we've been brought up with,
that
our dads have taught us, that their dads taught them and their dads taught them, that only men can really understand. So that for me, and that's why I joined the boys talk. We call it boys talk, the boys talk group, because it's just men. It's just we can completely relate to what
each other are experiencing.
We're going through. Exactly.
So what would you say to someone who is in two minds about, they've lost someone, but they're a guy who doesn't know, who wants to talk but doesn't know what to say or doesn't know where to start? What would your advice be in that situation?
So if you don't know what to say, there is no right or wrong thing to say.
Yeah.
It's whatever you want to say or need to say. A lot of the time with meetups, especially now they're online, we have people that they're just in the meeting, so the microphones are off, the screens are off, they're just there listening.
Yeah,
that's a great starting point, because then they can kind of gauge the vibe of the group.
What
kind of conversations are being had. If they want to come in and talk, they can do. If they don't have to. There's no pressure, and that's the biggest thing. There's no pressure. It's not like we sit around a table and say, right, my name's Liam, my best mate died, here's my story. It's like, right,
throw it down.
You next.
You're next, son.
Yeah, exactly. It's just not like that at all. It's the most easygoing, judgment-free, safe space that you could hope to have. So anybody on the fence about that is do whatever you're comfortable with doing initially, and know there's no pressure. You can take it as far as you want to take it. But doing that from personal experience, having done it myself, it's been life-changing. It's been a complete game changer for me.
Yeah.
And it's one of the best things that I've ever done, is taking that first step, start talking.
Yeah.
And I haven't looked back since.
Well, you also develop new skills, like the skill, like I feel like you develop a lot more empathy. Like when you do talk about it, you understand that other people do feel, emotions. Like it is a weird thing to say that, but like you're not the only one who, and I think when you lose someone, you have this idea that no one knows what I'm going through, because I'm a set case, I'm the only person who's ever experienced this, but that's not true.
No, exactly, and that's what you learn. You see, it's like a eureka moment. You think, oh my god, it's not just me. I really thought it was. Just because you've never had that conversation with somebody else before. It's a massive thing, and people will often say, people say this to me all the time. I hate it when people say that. You think, oh my god, I wouldn't have even thought of that. But now that you've said that, I totally get it, and I can see how other people start to think. So it's a skill. Emotional intelligence is a skill. Empathy is a skill.
Yeah, of course.
And there's a certain amount of innate ability. You have it. Some people more than others at a young age, but by talking and being in those groups, in that environment, you develop it.
Yeah,
and it makes you a much more well-rounded person. Yeah,
I agree. So before I do kind of wrap this up, I kind of like to end it on this one note, which is, if you were to sit down and have a conversation with Matt again, what would you say?
Do you know what? That's blindsided me. I don't know.
I've thrown you off here. Yeah.
Do you know what? I have dreams about Matt.
Okay.
All the time, like weekly.
Okay.
Every week, and they used to really hit me, hard. But now it's just, it's nice. I wake up, I remember the dream. Oh, that was nice. Matt came to see me last night.
Yeah.
And in the dream, it's always the same dream, but there's differences.
Okay.
So Matt's come back. It's almost always where he's either died or been on his deathbed, but he's made a miraculous recovery.
Okay.
Because you're in a dream. That's normal. Right? That's not weird. It's a dream, so that's fine. And I go and talk to him, and we're going to have this moment where we come together. An amazing moment, not reconciled is the wrong word, but we're here together again. But I'd never have a conversation with him because he has to go again.
Yeah.
He's got to go. He always has to go. He can never stay.
Okay.
And I used to wonder, what the fuck is that about? It keep for 3 years. It keeps happening. Okay. What is going on here?
Yeah.
And one of the lovely ladies in the Let's Talk About Loss TNN grief group that I go to said, had a great sort of input. She said that that's because you've not accepted that he's dead.
Yeah.
Subconsciously, you're stuck in this stage of non-acceptance. And because you've not accepted it, you then can't. That's why he keeps leaving again.
Yeah.
And it made so much sense to me, and that was a real big moment for me, because I used to beat myself up and get really, get upset about it. So I want to talk to him, want to have a conversation.
Yeah,
I keep seeing him in my dreams, but
he
comes along and he's gone again. Why does this keep happening? But what would I say to him? I just don't know. I honestly say I don't know what I'd say to him.
Yeah.
It would just be so overwhelming.
You just tell him the Chelsea score.
It would. That's what it would be. It would be like, should we go down Spoons for a pint or something? That's what it would be. It would be. Yeah, I don't know. I do think about it.
Yeah.
Just what would that moment feel like? But it's almost too much, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think if I go down that rabbit hole, I'll never get out of this acceptance phase, because I'm always wondering what would happen.
Yeah.
Thinking, what if? So no, I haven't got an answer to that, I'm afraid.
Well, it's all right, mate. I did ask you to put you on the spot a bit there. But yeah, thank you for being so open and obviously having this conversation. Hopefully you've taken something from it.
Absolutely. No, thank you for having me on. It's
no problem at
all. Fantastic, yeah.
Yeah, that was brilliant. And I think that's a wrap. So sweet.
I just want you to find your truth and stick to it. I know you'll be okay. I know it. From the bottom of my heart, I know it. I love you, Papa.